What's up guys? In this video we're going to apply the process I talked about in this video to attacking B site on bind. Let's start with long. Now a quick reminder, the whole point of this process is to methodically go through and clear angles one by one, just like you would in a real game, to the point where you develop a muscle memory for clearing those angles so that when you go into a real game, you don't even have to think about it. You just automatically go through and clear the angles one by one. You can think about things like where the enemy might be, what they're likely to do, what tactics they're likely to employ. And this allows you to just get those basics down really well so you can focus on more strategic and tactical things. On attacking side, we start here and have enough time to peek this corner before the opposition can get to the left-hand side of a teleporter. Unless they're playing an Omen or a Jet, some kind of dash ability. So be aware if your opponents have those abilities and if they're likely to use them, they could be here. If they are, you need to remember to peek that when you go up further. So we're coming up to Fountain, and where should our crosshair be? Of course, it should be at head height, which is the whole point of this process. So the most likely peek spot for the opposition is generally up here. And if we zoom up, that is approximately head height. And you can see that it's very similar height to this little wooden beam. So if we put that there and zoom back down to the end, you can see it's actually kind of in line with this blue line here. So if you're peeking from as far back as possible, put your crosshair roughly at the height of this blue line, and you peek, you'll see you're actually at a pretty good level for head height already. So I reckon that's a really good place to start. So you can jiggle peek out here, have a look, take a couple of shots if you like, and then keep your crosshair approximately at the same height as that wooden beam. It's a really easy guide, that one. And just push up here. Now, peeking this window, there's a couple of spots your opposition can be. Once again, you'll need to make sure you check this side here if they have an Omen or a Jet or someone who can teleport across there without you hearing or seeing. But let's assume that they don't have somebody like that. If they did, you just want to come to here where you can't be visible from sight and just quickly check that spot. Cool, so let's work out how to peek the entrance to B garden. A couple of spots to think about. Main one is this one here and this one here in terms of head height spots. Pretty close. Somewhere around about there is good. And then generally from this spot, somebody will be playing a little bit further back and they'll just be peeking like this. So head height may not necessarily be here, but that's pretty close to what it would be back here anyway. So we'll have a look at what that looks like from the entrance to the site. You can see it's maybe 2/3 of the way up this blue line. So as long as you're peeking roughly here, just below that blue line there, that's a pretty good spot. So the idea is we stand here, peek that, and then keep moving. Once we've cleared these two angles, we need to make sure that there's nobody playing a close angle inside garden. So once again, move as far away from the angle as possible. Have a quick look, refire if you like. Luckily, they can't be too deep because of the shape of this room. So we check that one really quickly, and then we come back out. Okay, when you pop back out, it's probably a good idea to check these angles again, just in case someone's there now. And now we need to work out how to push into garden as safely as possible. So you're always going to be exposed to this, which is why you should probably have some kind of utility blocking this off when you're trying to take sight. This is a smoke I really like. This angle here, and then the box is a good one. Oftentimes people will be hiding behind the box. You can actually wallbang it. Remember that you can't wallbang this gray section, only the green bit. So it's often a good idea to find approximately head height here, which is about just below, just at the level of that gray bit. So you can just use that as a guide and take a couple of pot shots like that. Maybe you can pick up a free kill, or at least flush them out of this area, which is really, really important. Once you've done that, we can swing across here. This is another common angle. So head height here, probably around about the top of this little gray to brownish part on the blue area. So that's a really good spot to put your crosshair. And you can just zoom across here, refire that if you like. And of course, the notorious close left spot here is actually really easy to clear. You just have to wallbang this spot, and they'll have to leave. They can't really escape that because of this. You'll always hit them if they're standing there and you wallbang from that spot. So really good idea to clear that. Once we've cleared that, it's time to go out on site. Once again, this should hopefully be smoked. And the other smoke I like to generally do is I'll smoke inside elbow. You can do that slightly further out if you like. Now the first thing I like to do is come across. Let's just smoke that back up.
Cover going out.
Oftentimes people like to play these really close crouch angles over here. That's good to clear that. You can kind of have a look from there, or you can do that to here in pre-fire if they're often playing that spot. And then we need to get out onto site. So let's assume that's still smoked. We really want to go up to here if possible. So hopefully we've cleared this angle by pre-firing or wall banging this spot here. If you want to,
Cover going
you can
out.
just pop up here and pre-fire like that. So checking tube is pretty easy. It's a good idea to pre-fire the spot because there's oftentimes people will play that. And then I'll usually walk back into the corner before I can be seen from CT. And I'll often actually wallbang this spot because you'll have, quite often people will be hanging around this angle here. So you can fire a few shots into here and jiggle peek. This spot's difficult because there's a bit of vertical change here. So if they're sitting down here, their head will be at a different height to what you're expecting. This is a really good little headshot spot here. So for example, if they're crouched like that,
Here.
the head will be about there. It's kind of tough to pre-aim, but literally anywhere around that area is a good option. So I like to just jiggle peek there, and then I'll just have to make a small vertical flick to get their head if they are there. Pretty tough, so be careful with that. You could also smoke off CT.
Cover going
It's
out.
probably a good idea as well, especially if you have a brimstone. So we've cleared in here. Often good to pre-fire this spot here, and then I also really like to, at some point while I'm clearing this area, I like to pre-fire this spot. Oftentimes you'll have somebody hiding there, even if you have this smoked off. Should be the right spot.
Shadows traveling.
Yeah, even if that's smoked, you'll often have somebody sitting in here just waiting. So it's a good idea often to just make sure you shoot that. And it's really easy to estimate where the corner is. You just peek out here, shoot that. You can also wallbang parts of this, not all of it, so you can't wallbang through this thing, but you can wallbang through the single wall of the tube. That's a good area there. Once you've done that, honestly, you've got most of B sites. That's you've cleared all the angles. Those two smokes, one here and one here, give you a lot of ability to get out on site unhindered with as few angles as possible on you. The only thing I would say is that if you're trying to do this site take with a teammate, you can organize that one person will clear this angle and one person will clear elbow. Or alternatively, one person can clear this way and one person can clear this way. So for example, you could have a smoke
going out.
like this.
Shadows traveling.
And one person clears all these angles and then pushes out to here, as the one we explained before, while the other person comes out this way, clears these angles, checks the spot, checks here, and then clears that way. That way you have a nice little crossfire for anybody sitting in this area from both of you, and from these sides at the same time. That's one option. Another option would be you can do the standard smoke setup that I was talking about before.
Cover going out.
On this spot. But maybe you could smoke off, say, here, although I don't really like to smoke very much. And one person could clear this way, like normal, while the other person actually clears elbow. And clearing elbow is really interesting because there's lots of wallbang opportunities. So ideally, if you got both those smokes up and you've cleared this area, you don't really have to worry about anything behind you, unless of course your teammates are not pushing hookah.
Shadows
So that can be a potential issue if you've got an enemy fending in there. Be really careful with that. We want to clear this angle here. One of the common ones. And also it's really common for people to sit right there, so you can actually pre-fire that spot if you like. Remembering there's a slight undulation in the ground, so their head will be slightly higher than if they were a little bit lower. The genuine head height would be there. There's a slight difference, but it does make a bit of a change. So it's good to pre-fly out that spot there. And then just want to clear these angles nice and methodically. Just making sure that they're not holding any angles. Now this is where it gets interesting. This spot here is actually wallbangable, but this spot is not. You can see how these bullets here went through. So it's actually good if someone's holding a line from, say, that corner there. You can actually come in, do a regular peek if you want, or you can just fire a few bullets into the wallbang spot. And you can do the same thing with this bar here. This is entirely wallbangable. However, this part here is not. So what I like to do is wallbang this spot, maybe peek this. Oftentimes I'll pre-fire this spot here. Then we can push up. Now, Once again, this is interesting like we talked about before because there's those steps down into CT, so getting your crosshair at head height is actually quite challenging here. Obviously that would be about what their head is if they're standing in elbow or in CT. So you can just have a quick look there if you like before you expose yourself fully.
Here.
Just thinking about where that crosshair needs to be. Head height, if they're playing that really far away angle, is right about on line with the horizontal bar there. So oftentimes I like to use this little white patch on the wall. I'll just stand right back here, just roughly sit about there. It's not perfect, but once again, it's really hard to estimate where their head will be because they could be anywhere on that ramp coming up to CT. So somewhere around here, jiggling out there, being aware that they could be here as well. This is a really hard spot to clear, especially because they'll have complete angle advantage on you because the distance between here and here is quite short. Whereas they have a really, really long angle on you, so they'll see you well before you see them. It's a really tough angle to peek, actually. That's basically it for pushing from long. Let's have a look now at Hookah. So everybody's favorite little wallbang spot. You can use wallbangs on any of this little wall here to get inside the little tube entrance into Hookah. If somebody's planning on peeking you from there, it can be a really good idea to pre-fire that because you'll definitely get a bit of damage in. As before with B long, you need to be wary of specifically Omen. If an Omen wants to, they can teleport over here. And if you look on the mini-map, you'll see the audible range. They'll be able to hear the initial animation, but not the second one. I'll do that again so you can see it. Notice how the first sound ring on the map is quite large. They'll be able to hear that, but not the second one. One more time. So that white circle. So they won't be able to hear where you're actually appearing. They'll know you're teleporting somewhere. If they're smart, they'll know you're probably teleporting here, but still something to watch out for. So if they any chance they could do that, you'll need to come up here and check the spot. Pretty rare though, to be honest. And now we can look at peeking inside Hookah. So in terms of wallbangs, this is quite a good one. Just a little bit below this horizontal bar here, you can actually wallbang that spot for the common angle that people will sometimes hold here. And as a general rule of thumb, when you're pushing Hookah, you want to have your crosshair slightly above that horizontal wooden beam. That's generally where head height will be. Prove that.
Here.
It's basically it. Right about there. So, general rule of thumb, and that way you can just move down if they're crouching. So, in order to clear this, we're going to have a look. I like to do this sort of wallbang quickly, checking this spot, moving across, checking this spot, all the way across. Now, obviously, this is a really common spot for things like shorties, or short range weapons. If you have some kind of util, like for example, an Omen Flash, this is an awesome spot to flash. You can use Phoenix Molly. Anything to flush it out is really, really important because that's a really ugly angle to push, especially when they have a short range weapon like a shorty. If you don't have any util, you're just going to have to pre-fire. I would pre-fire this one 100% of the time if we haven't used some kind of util to clear it because it's just such a common spot, really. Okay, once we've cleared this side of Hookah, we want to clear out here. I like to just have a look there, have a look here. Another common spot that I like to use when I'm defending is actually up on top of this crate. Sometimes you can sit here and shoot as people come out. So head height for that is approximately
Here.
Yeah, just above the box. So I like to peek out here and peek straight up here. Bear in mind, you can wallbang all of this, even if they're sitting behind the box waiting with an Odin or something, or with a shorty again, you can pre-fire to push them out. Now crouching will be around about this height, which is not wallbangable. So be aware of that. You could be crouching. Cool, so once we've cleared this angle and this angle, we want to push back a little bit and be really careful of CT door. Now this is where I really recommend having a smoke either here, or my favorite one,
Cover going out.
here. Because that way when you're pushing out, they can't see you unless they have a cipher camera or something like that. So once we've gotten out here, I'm going to check this spot here again, because once again, if they've crouched, we can't kill them through the crate. And now you need to think about pushing here. Now, once again, ideally, you'd have somebody pushing it through long. And we've already talked about how they'd be clearing angles. So that person may have flushed out the person behind the crate already. They may have already cleared this angle and this angle. Or you may have it smoked, either or. Somebody could potentially be here, but it seems pretty doubtful if you've cleared Hookah. One of the really common spots is actually in elbow. So something like right about here. Just check head height for that one. Right about here. So, I mean, you could just use that top of that blue line as a guide. Somewhere around, or even the top of that door, actually. It's probably better. So we can go somewhere around about there. That head height. And then you can probably have a look at that one as well. And then basically, you can push out on site. The only thing we haven't mentioned so far on this side is these close angles. But one of the common ones is somebody will sit right here, probably once again with a short range weapon, and they'll just wait for you to push out onto Hookah and then they'll kill you. So I really want to check that. It's a really common spot. I like to just come up here and free fire. And the other one, of course, is people who are crouching below Hookah. So you can do like a bit of a jump peek here if you want to check next to the crate without exposing yourself to sight.
Cover going out.
Otherwise, you can do that. Being aware that you're, of course, exposing yourself to all of these angles as well while you do that, and that's dangerous. But basically, once you've cleared that, and hopefully your teammates are in elbow or are in this area by now, now you can jump out if you need to, get the bomb plant, and play for post plant. So that's all for this video on clearing angles on B site on Bind. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and or subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, see you next time.